Hi everyone, welcome to On Purpose with Karina, and today I have Andrey, someone who was a mentor, a big influence in my life, and a big brother for my sister and I. And I'm super excited for this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I'm excited to do this because there's a lot of questions I feel like that just don't come up in casual conversation or
Okay.
behind dinner or whatever. So I felt like this is an excuse to ask everything I've ever always wanted to ask.
Yay.
So
So
I guess
exciting.
I want to start from like the beginning for maybe those who don't know you. Your journey or your encounter with giving your life to Jesus, being born again, was there a black and white moment, or is it a gradual thing, or was it like a logical decision, an emotional experience? What was it like for you?
Yeah, so I think there was no encounter that was black and white. Being born into a Christian family, it was more of a gradual coming to know God. I do remember the years like as a teenager because you grow up in a family, you learn all the stories, you learn everything that you need to know. You learn the manners that you need to carry the Bible, to sing, and I was really good at that. Like, I don't know if you guys are into personality type tests, like the Enneagram. You know the Enneagram?
Well,
And
you
there's
made us
nine.
take it. All the leaders and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Different.
there's a Myers-Briggs. There's a 16 personalities. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I on the Enneagram, I'm a performer.
Oh.
And that's the name. So like, I'm very concerned, or the cardinal me is very concerned about what other people will say and think. So I was really good at that, like a religion part and doing the right things and sitting the right way at church. And I was like in choir and serving and all that. But as with all people, we have some messed upness somewhere deep inside of us. And so as a teenager, I remember going outside and walking and just asking all these questions. I had questions about God, who He is, why I felt certain way, or why I was struggling with certain things, and why the church and going to church and singing wasn't solving these things. And so I remember those nights. I would just go on prayer walks. I don't know. Nobody really taught me that, and it wasn't something that Pentecostals did. But I love to walk outside and just talk and ask questions. So that was actually one of the big reasons why I was pushed to do teens ministries, because as a teenager I had so much questions, and I was like, wow, if I teenager had a bunch of questions, I grew up, I found some answers. Maybe it was through Bible school or some mentors in my life. Then I kind of turn around, like there's a bunch of other teenagers who are probably going through the same thing, who are probably going to the same church I was going to, that have the same questions. Hey, why not partner with them and help them in this journey? And so, as my own encounter, it was definitely gradual. There's this understanding where, like, at some point you're not saved, and then another point you are saved. I think of salvation as, it's actually, if you look at the word saved and salvation as Jesus uses it in the New Testament and in the Greek, it's the same word used for healed. So it's a healing from the old you. It's the putting off the old and putting on the new. And some like there's certain times where Jesus says your faith has healed you, and there's no healing that happened, like physical healing.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And your faith has saved you. It's they're the same word. And even when Jesus, we can probably look at this off camera, but when
Yeah, I
Jesus
want to look into.
when Jesus heals somebody physically, and He says your faith has healed you, He's using the same word as saved you. And so for me, salvation is a is a healing from sin. It's a healing from the old you, and it probably look at your life. It's always putting off the old, putting on the new, putting off the old, putting on the new, and it's this healing. Yeah, there's probably not probably, but a time where we open our hearts for the Holy Spirit, God, to live inside of us, and then we're able to listen to His Spirit that's inside of us and live by the Spirit, as Paul says. That's probably a moment in time, but then the rest of your life is this healing, is this being saved type of deal, is this, Paul writes, perfecting your salvation. What is that? Yeah, it's a gradual sanctification. So I don't remember. Yeah, it's a lot of talking, but I don't remember an encounter and it's like, boom, I'm saved. Now I can just go save everybody else. I'm still being saved.
No, I wanted to hear that because I think there's people out there that they're like, well, I think Yuri had an experience like that. Like he didn't have a black and white moment. So he's like, is something wrong with me because I didn't have this like huge emotional, like my experience was like that. Like his wasn't. So he's like, something wrong with me is.
Yeah, for me it was like a journey for like years, because first of all, I didn't fully understand what salvation was, and I thought something was wrong with me, and I thought like growing up in a very conservative home, you're like, there's a lot of views that I no longer believe in. Where I was younger, I was like, oh, you need to go through this thing, to be saved. And I had so many questions and so few answers. And the more I dug, the more a rebel I became. And you're not supposed to question, you're just supposed to do. And it's like confusion and then rebelliousness. And then years down the road, understanding who God is, what the Bible is, what salvation is, what all of those things are. And then you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think as people, we do this thing, we have an experience. Let's say you get saved a certain way. And then everyone who doesn't get saved your certain way, you were in danger of writing off as not being saved. And so it's like systematic. There's systematic racism. It's like systematic, I don't know what to call it.
So okay. Well, I think people just tend to put things in a box, whether it's salvation, whether it's an experience, whether it's your gifts or whatever. They're like, this is how it happened. That's why I'm going to go teach others how to heal people, how to get the tongues or whatever. Then they try to apply a form. There's no formula to a lot of those things.
Yeah, and even the tongues thing, like just from the research, Pentecostals and theology and baptism theology, there's 5 instances in the Bible where it says that people became believers and they received the Spirit, and 3 out of them they speak in tongues and 2 of them they don't. There's other signs of the Spirit in them, such as joy and I think prophecy or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but we're in danger of taking one method of the Spirit entering a person and being manifested, and we're in danger of making that the standard for everyone. And so that's the kind of church maybe I grew up in. It was like, this is how you get the Spirit in you, and if you don't look like this when you're getting the Spirit, then you ain't getting the Spirit.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you gave me this advice when I was teaching in teens ministry. You said something, I think you weren't even talking to me, I think you just said it. You're like, make sure that you're not teaching or preaching or whatever from your lens of experience, but from the Bible.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. And I do a lot because my experience was so black and white. I would always use that as a filter in how I teach the teens. And I remember that I had to reevaluate and question that whenever I prepared something. I'm like, well, what does the Bible say? Or is that because it was my experience, Yeah.
I think we can never be fully free from that because we all have our lenses.
Yeah.
We all do. Everybody. But it's a process of learning to do less of my lens and God can do whatever He wants, right? Even Jesus healing so many different ways. And you can't take the method and make it a standard, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're putting God in a box.
Yeah.
I can help you, I can teach you how to hear God's voice and how to, and you can practice to discern if it's God or the pizza that you ate last night that's speaking in your head, right? You can practice that.
Yeah.
And so there's school of prophecy in the Old Testament. I think Elijah or Elisha, where he opened a school of prophets, where I think he just taught them or helped them kind of discern this idea is coming from God and you should tell it to people, you should prophesy it, or this idea is kind of just you and you shouldn't prophesy it. And so that's in a sense, that's learning how to prophesy.
Yeah. I guess,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, I guess, I think,
There's definitely a school of prophets in the Old Testament.
I feel like,
Oh.
There's like, I don't know if you got chosen to go there. I don't know enough to how you apply to that school, or if any random Joe could go to that school, or maybe if they thought you have a prophetic gift, you could go. But there was definitely a school of prophets where they learned how to prophesy.
you mentioned that you went into teens ministry because it's something that, I guess you were, as a teenager, you were going through things and you wanted to help other teenagers. So, my question is, I know that you did some mentorship outside of an official teens ministry. When did that happen where you were not just like a teacher in but you became a mentor to young adults and teens outside of a church or ministry? Did that just happen by itself, or?
Yeah, I mean, it started with a few guys who didn't have a father or had a father who wasn't present. And I mean, we would just go out to some fast food, which I don't recommend now. But we would go out to fast food and we would just chat. And it was just building relationships, talking, and then stuff would come out, like just the internal stuff that we all deal with. And I knew how to respond to that because it was just a few years ago where I had to work through that and get healing and get saved from that. So I think at one point, this mentorship kind of community that we built was what kept me in teen ministry over the teaching and the groups. Like I organized the teaching in the groups in order to provide kind of like a greenhouse for mentorship to happen. Because there was a way to meet teens, hang out with them, and maybe share something on a deeper level, which you can't do in a classroom. And so they're both important. There's like the word of God, like the truth, the worldview that you teach, that kind of helps shape someone's understanding and how life works. They're like mental maps. We give them Christian worldview mental maps, kind of how relationships work, how God created, how love works, how relationships work, and so on and so forth, right? And then there's this more personal, which happens probably just one-on-one. Yeah, it started with a few guys. I mean, I never mentored really girls like one-on-one ever. And I think in our team meetings, I encouraged you guys to do that.
Yeah.
And it was cool because you just be faithful in what God is doing through you. And then other people were like, oh, wow, I want to do that too. I want to try that. Or like they see what is possible. Not necessarily, well, I want to be like that guy. Or they just see it's possible to go out with someone and impact their life. And then they just try it and it works. And God's like, and God does something through them. And it multiplied, like to you, to Karina, to Susan, and to some guys. It just multiplied.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's that.
Like you see your fruits too in like the leaders that you took under your wing, and like it's like in other churches. And
so in my experience, there was no planning for this. I was too young and stupid to plan for that, or I was too young and dumb to plan for that. But this is what I think God uses, the ones who are dumb enough not to plan in order to do what he wants to do, right? And so I just did what I was young. I just did what God put on my heart, and then the fruit just came without any planning. It wasn't like, okay, if I do this structure and model, then we will cultivate new leaders, and then these leaders will build new groups. There's none of that, but it all happened.
Yeah.
It all just, it was God thing. It was an overflow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I remember when like you started a group, some other group, and Karina moved to a different church, and she started a teen ministry, and then like Vitaly Manilov's like the youth leader now, and it's like
Susan's in California.
Yeah, leading teens. Like Ilona is at some Bible school, Marchenko. She's at some Bible school, and it's like you don't plan for that. God does what He wants.
Yeah.
So I like to, or I try to picture myself as just a small kind of like conduit, like God's grace, and then like whatever God wants to do with that, you just be faithful with what God gave you.
Well, someone waters, someone plants.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. But because I didn't plan for it, you can't take credit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some part of me hopes that I could.
I would give you credit.
But... but no, I mean, genuinely, I cannot
hard,
because nobody planned for it.
Yeah. I think I would give credit to your faithfulness to God. And I would say thank you for being faithful to God, because through you, you've impacted me, who impacted others. So it's like,
I would say God just made me do it, and there was no other way. So it always comes back to God.
Obedience. Yeah. How important is mentorship for mentors? And I remember there was a time where you had an accountability partner, and I know you had a hard time finding one. So how did that, was that successful? Was that a failure?
So how important? Very important, especially if you're a young leader, because people expect from you. But for me, it was being the performer that I was there was more output than input, definitely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I was giving more than I was receiving, which is not good. And it caused, just in my life, in my kind of inward world, it caused some hurt, trauma, or whatever you want to call it. It was not healthy for me for such a long time, right? To just give, and never to receive. With that said, I was always looking for some support. So I had a friend in Florida. He was his name is Slavik. He was the IDT director when I went to school there.
Okay.
Intense and discipleship training. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and we became good friends. I was like one of the older kids in the class, and so we became good friends. I would go to his house when I went to teach TBA, and we would hang out. And so he helped me a lot. We would have like strategic weekly calls where we would have strategic questions and answers actually that we went through, and they were all like internal things that I was struggling with, and then he had his own. So he would ask me about my purity. He would ask me about pornography. He would ask me about like my relationships back then, and they were specifically designed to check in on the areas of the soul that nobody else knew about, but you knew that somebody cares, and we would talk about it, whether it was good or failing or messed up or doing awesome, and then we would bring it before the Lord. We would pray. That was really helpful. Okay. We still stay in touch with him. He has a cool story. I'll quickly share it. He wanted to adopt a child. He felt like God wanted him to adopt a child, so he went to Ukraine to adopt a child, and he adopted 5.
When he was married?
He's married.
Wow.
And so from 1 he went to 5 because he chose like 1 or 2, and then all the siblings came with it. So that was cool. So now, I mean, he's a lot more busy. He's a pastor now. He wasn't a pastor back then, so we talk less. But he was the closest thing to a mentor that I had.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
And
church? What church?
He's from Palm Coast.
Oh, okay.
Is that a city?
Palm Coast, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think there's Palm Coast and Palm Beach and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
Palm Coast. I don't know the name of the church. It's a small community.
In my journey of finding a mentor, it was really hard. Especially, I think like my community was so like closed, and I didn't know a lot of people outside of my community, and everyone in my community had a biased opinion on like my parents divorced, and I had a bad relationship with my mom. Everyone I turned to that I could talk to, I knew had some kind of involvement. Like literally everybody, like even like prophets of the church and things like that. So I was like left stranded, and I really wanted to talk to someone. And for years there was no one until we got married, and I got connected to someone over Zoom from, like I was still in Oregon. This was someone in Florida, a mentor that was knew psychology and the Bible, and I was like, wow, like this was so overdue. And I guess God's timing is perfect, but how do you find a good mentor? Where do you look?
Yeah, so I can't give you a good answer on that, because there was plenty of times where I would reach out to someone who I thought would be a good mentor and be like, can you help me with my soul stuff?
Yeah.
And they would say like, I don't know, what do you want me to do? And so
Go ahead.
and so it's like, you need to teach a mentor how to mentor so they can mentor you.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna work. So
Yeah.
there's plenty of that. Maybe it's the community we grew up in. It was not part of the culture. What was part of the culture is if you have issues, then you don't show them.
Yeah.
That was more part of the culture than, hey, it's okay to have soul problems. Let's figure out how to untie the knots.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that reminds me of that time where I was really trying to figure how to reconcile things from my past and like get over. I was dealing with a few things, and I reached out to someone who, at the time, there's someone who's finished the seminary and I looked up to, and they were preaching in a church. I was like, let me talk to this person. I was like, hey, I'm dealing with this and this and this, and like my past and stuff. How do I get over it? How can I, move past this? And he's like, well, in a way, you never will. And he kind of just left it at that. And I'm like, bro, thanks. Like,
Yeah.
it was interesting. And then I realized he hasn't moved on from his past. He was holding on.
I was gonna say that.
He was still like struggling with. He still is struggling, and like he literally couldn't help me, even though I was looking up to him because he had all the accolades or whatever. Yeah, I think so. It goes back to like everyone, not just in the Slavic community, but it's probably more pronounced. They're out there pretending to be like doing better than they are, driving cooler cars than they can afford,
Yeah.
building a bigger house. They put on a show, and everyone inside is like trying to impress everyone else. Where it's like you could all sit down and be honest, and like, because that's where you can start to change.
Yeah. I think a lot of the things we kind of say, oh, it's a Slavic thing because we come from a Slavic background. Most of the time, it's just a human thing.
Yeah.
We want to perform better than we are.
Yeah.
And I wanted the same thing. I did it for many years, and in some areas, in some ways, it still is a temptation now to be better in front of people than you actually are, because you're not gonna wear your soul on the sleeve all
Right.
the time, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, that can have an extreme where you still have the same problems that you had before, and then you're not being saved, bro. You're not being healed from the soul problems. One thing, I heard this from Latsovchuk. He says it was on the issue of pornography, and he's like, just read books on this topic. And I did that. I just took, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, I don't know, 7 books where I just on that topic. And these writers, they give me hope that it's possible to defeat this whatever you want to call it, addiction. And before that, everyone I talked to didn't give me any hope. They gave me kind of an answer like you did, or like you got. It's like, oh, you just continue to battle, continue this tug of war, and hopefully you can win sometime. And sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. But the books I read or the audiobooks I listened to, like, I love one author was like straight up. He's like, the reason why I'm writing this book is to tell you that it's possible.
Wow.
And that was like a changing moment for me, because now you start to believe that it's possible to be free from something that you've been stuck to for years, right? And that sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse, but it's possible to be free. It's possible to be completely like forgotten. Yeah.
So faith is contagious.
Yeah.
That's literally my motto, because my addiction was like that. Like, it was just, I'm like, it's possible to be free. And I actually mentor girls in sexuality. It's something that's much needed to say, like, it's possible to be free once and for all, whatever addiction it is. It's like all the same.
Yeah, and no, because Jesus came not to make you better, but to heal you from sin. Like that's from when I think of Jesus, he came to heal. He is the doctor of the soul, right? And so our idea of Christianity, maybe just in my head, is like to be better, but to be better can have so many. Like, you need to grow spiritually. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean you need to go to seminary, learn a bunch of things, and preach better? What's a better indicator for me is this healing of the soul. It's like, what kind of person are you when everything that you have and everything that you do on the stage or in ministry is stripped away? Like, what kind of person are you? What kind of soul do you have? Is it ugly? Is it crippled? Is it messed up? Does it need Jesus's like healing? Does it need a touch? Does it need mentorship or whatever? So that has become a better indicator for me of how people are doing, is like, let's talk about what's happening on the inside, in the soul.
Another note on mentorship, correct me if you have like a different opinion, but I think, let's say if a mentor has a struggle that enters their life, to be honest with their mentees. And like, it was like that in my life. Like, I knew I needed to find healing from forgive my mom. And I saw that it was affecting my soul, that it was not pretty. And I told my mentees, like, hey, like, I made sure they had someone to go to, that they weren't left hanging. I'm like, I'm going to step away for 4 to 6 months, and then I'll let you know, and I'll come back. And for me, that was like a learning curve. And like, someone I know, a mentor, went and got mentorship, because they're like, oh, wow, you went and got mentorship. So I really want that to be the culture also, of like mentors getting mentorship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think of mentorship maybe a little bit different. I don't think of it as some kind of strategic way, like I mentor this person, they're getting mentors from someone else. I think of mentorship as just a relationship. It's like, I want to have deeper relationships with people. We have people in our lives where we're able to go deeper. And yeah, it's a mentorship relationship.
Yeah.
But
I think it depends what you're doing. So like discipleship, yes, like you live life. The best way to impact someone is just going to Burger King or whatever. But I think if porn addiction, that you need a system, you need accountability. You can't work without a system. So it's a little different. It depends what you're doing.
So maybe I haven't been a mentor. Maybe I just have been a discipleship person.
I guess that's the difference. Is it depends what you're doing.
Okay.
With addiction, there has to be a system.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no progress. Spirituality as a logically wired person.
Yay.
I just want to. I'm very curious about that, because Yuri's very logical, my husband, and it was a learning curve. He was like this social experiment for me. I was like, how do you work and how do you understand things? And
are you not?
I am not
a logical person.
I think I want to be. So I try or pretend to be, because that's truly who I want to be. I don't like the emotional side of me. Childhood trauma. I want to be super logical because I don't trust my emotions. I've seen emotions destroy things. And so like I try to be, but if I'm honest with myself, at my core, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of things that I would not understand or like, I guess, argue or defend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I'm curious to hear your
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
So let's say even from a psychological standpoint, there is a spectrum even on the Myers-Briggs personality test where it's like you're either more of a feeler or more of a thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can say emotional, rational.
Okay.
And so what feel like the biggest differentiation there is that feelers make decisions by they put themselves in the situation, right? While thinkers like to take themselves out of the situation and look from the outside. And so that's the biggest in psychology.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And so the feelers kind of put themselves in the situations in someone's shoes and kind of feel what it would feel like to be there, and then they make a decision, right? Thinkers step away, so it's less emotionally involved, as you can tell. A step away, kind of maybe cold in a way. It's like step away.
Yes.
It feels cold to the
Yes.
feelers, but they have the same intention as the feeler. They have the same good intention to make the right choice. They just have a different approach. So one's not good or bad. It's just a different approach. And so if you're more of a feeler, more emotional person, let's say, then you make decisions in a different way, not in a bad way, just in a different way. Yeah. But with that said, every good thing has an extreme. So you can be too rational, where you make the wrong choice because you make decisions solely based on what your mind thinks, and you disregard kind of the spiritual realm, or you disregard God's voice in your life, or you disregard kind of the nudging of the Holy Spirit. You're too cold. Or you can be too emotional, where like you don't really use logic anymore, and all you do is just kind of like what feels right at this moment, and you kind of blown by the wind wherever the wind blows. Okay, so on that spectrum, I find myself on the rational side, on the thinker side. The way I think life works is emotions. Like you can't change your emotion. You can't, when you're sad, you can't just be like, okay, be happy.
Okay.
What you can do is something rational. You can start thinking about something else that's going to impact your emotions. So in my worldview, my theology, and my understanding is thinking comes before feeling. And so like what feeling comes when you think of the bad boss that you have? Mad, right? What feeling comes when you think about your husband?
Happy.
Yeah, and so you can change what you think about, and that will impact how you feel, right? And so, go ahead.
Quick question. Do you think thinkers lack empathy?
They do, yeah. Or they're.
Do you think you lack empathy?
I definitely don't.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm curious.
Can you define empathy, just briefly? Like feeling the
Being
emotions.
able to consider one's emotions, I think. I don't know what the actual definition is.
Yeah. So, like I said, we are more cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are
Yeah.
more cold. But I want to say this: the more rational people need more feelers in their life and to be pulled towards feeling. And the more emotional people need more rational people in their life to be pulled more towards rationality. And so like what works great with me and my wife is so I'm more of a performance person, which is like just, and she's more of a relationship person, which could be categorized here as well. It's like more of a rational and more emotional because she's more relaxed. She's just like hang out with people, just be with people, talk, hang out. If some stuff doesn't get done around the house, oh, that's fine. Like as long as we have good relationships, right? Yeah. I'm like I would sacrifice this bonding time with a friend just to make sure that the lawn is mowed and it's perfect, right? But having us together, she's definitely pulled me in the direction of relationship, of maybe like feel, live, be in the moment. And with my personality, I pulled her into the like performance side more, where it's like sometimes you just gotta get things done. When it comes to spirituality, I think even denominations are built on this dichotomy. It's a dichotomy, where the Baptists will be your more rational leaders, guys, or whatever denomination, and Pentecostal and charismatic is more focused on this emotional and more kind of feel it. And so none of them are wrong. There can be an extreme in the charismatic.
Yeah.
There can be an extreme in the Baptist movement. There's plenty of Pentecostal charismatics who are rational, and there's plenty of Baptists kind of who are emotional, right? And so
Yeah,
we
so
come
there's
back
a
to
spectrum.
balance. Like
Yeah.
we come back to balance. But yes, my kind of default is rational. I step away from the situation. I become cold. I become non-empathetic, or what's the word for that? Just not because I don't love you, or not because I don't care for you, but because I want to make the right choice without being involved with all the emotions. And so you need to, or y'all need to understand that about us.
Yeah.
And we need to understand that about the feelers. They want to be in the shoes, and they want to be more involved and kind of be there, because that matters too. So that's kind of.
You're really good at putting it into words, because it's like that in our marriage. Our whole marriage was like him trying to understand this, like, counselor, helper, like, he'd be like, why is this person making this decision? I'm like, well, consider their childhood, consider this, consider. And we bring each other where he learns to bring out his emotions more instead of not, because he has trust issues with his emotions. And so, like, learning to trust, and he teaches me to be like, hey, step back, pause, don't make a quick decision.
I think God does that on purpose. He'll bring feelers and thinkers together.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about spirituality, or like our journey with Jesus, like some of my best moments is when I was very emotional. But the way I get there is very rational. So what they're called spiritual disciplines. It's like I encounter God emotionally, like when I have my time in silence and solitude, where I just sit there silently and just listen to what God is saying. I'll hear what He's saying, and I'll cry, or I'll become emotional. I feel Him in my body, or like around me. But I don't wait for that just to happen randomly at some conference or whatever. I, on purpose, get up at a certain time and go into my bedroom and get myself into a place where I can feel Him. So that can be an example, or a good example, of how rational and emotional work together. You rationally get out of bed and go to a place where you can be emotional with God. So that's how spirituality works. That's how my journey works. It's like I rational person need those feelings and emotions, because if I don't experience God, let's say, in my body, in my emotions, they're there for a reason, obviously. Then I become dry, and I become too rational, and I become too dependent on my own mind, and I make decisions based on just my knowledge and not His foreknowledge, right?
Was it difficult for you as a rational person to hear Holy Spirit, and like, did you question, is this a feeling or is this actually Holy Spirit? Was that more of a challenge for you?
Maybe earlier in life, yeah. Yeah, but I would say now I have learned to be more feely. But my point is that it shouldn't be random, and it shouldn't be dependent on external circumstances, or like how good the conference goes, or how good the conference goes, or how good the preacher preaches. You're responsible for your own growth, let's say.
Yeah.
So maybe earlier in life I would say it straight up. I'm like, people would, oh, I heard this from God. I'd be like, I don't know who you heard it from. You probably heard it from the pizza you ate last night,
Yeah.
or something like that. But that's definitely something that came up earlier. Probably not now.
Okay. It's interesting because I wish Yuri was here to say this story, but there was a time where there was a decision he needed to make. His rational side said, this is the decision. But he had this gut feeling that was like the complete opposite. And he comes to me, he's like, I don't understand what's happening. I have an inner battle. I'm like, that's the Holy Spirit. That's it right
Yeah.
there. Like tune into that and remember it. And next time it happens, know that that's, and for me I'm just like so mind blown how he works and how God speaks to him. Because sometimes he comes to me and he's like, I have made, like, let's say I have made a decision to make this type of donation and this is how God told me. And I'm like mind blown because it doesn't fit my lens of experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I just said a story that I wish you said about the Holy Spirit. You had a gut feeling. And
Yeah.
well, maybe if you say it and then we could cut out when I said it, or I don't know.
No, that's fine.
Oh.
That's fine.
I just think it's so cool. I don't know. But
Yeah.
we were just talking about spirituality as a logically driven person.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting topic. It's
He said a lot of good stuff. I wish you were here to hear it. It's for him too, you know, like
Yeah.
because you're learning how you work too when it comes to rationality and spirituality.
yeah.
Yeah.
Since you're more like logical, do you have a hard time relating to people who are more emotional, or when people are more emotionally driven, or like whether it's in their Christianity or Pentecostalism or charismatism, or just like everyday decisions or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a hard time because I mean, we talked about this with you. I'm more on the spectrum that I mentioned earlier, and I mentioned during the podcast was I'm on the rational thinking side versus feeling and emotional side. And so people who are over there, sometimes I don't understand why they do what they do. But it's good to have those kind of people around you because life is about balance. Because if you're too rational and too thinking, you can become cold. What's the opposite of empathy?
Apathy?
Sociopath.
Nah, you can become like cold. You
Yeah.
don't care about. So you want to have these people around you who kind of like drag you more to the feely side because you're gonna be you're gonna be better. Exactly. You're gonna be better if you're a rational person. You're gonna be a better rational person if you start to feel more.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because your decisions are going to be more well-rounded. Because you realize there's a spiritual world. There's things that you cannot understand with your mind. There's things that you feel that are true, but that you don't get. There's things like that. It's called spiritual things. Some spiritual things are like that. Like your gut feeling that you shared. Like your mind says one thing. Your gut or whatever that is, spirit, whatever you want to call it, unseen world, whatever you want to call it, says something else, your feelings. So you're going to be a more well-rounded person if you learn to feel a little bit more. Not fully become emotional and not rational, but just to start to feel more. Someone who's emotional and feely, jiggly, all that stuff, swirly is going to be a much better person if they learn how to make decisions more rationally. Just because they're going to be more well-rounded. Because it's some combination of both. Because we understand there's a reason why we have emotions. There's a spiritual world, and not just in a biblical sense, but there's truth that is unseen. There is a reality that is unseen. That's what spirit is. It's like it's something that's there, but we cannot see it. That fact also states that there's things that are true that we do not understand, or that we cannot process through our physical brain, like the animal brain, let's say, that we have to feel. That we have to feel that are true.
But how do you know that if you feel it, that it's true?
It's the same. I mean, maybe the same thing as how do you know God is real when you don't see Him? How? You trust based on the other facts that are true that this fact is true.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Because I think like a human could be convinced of anything.
Okay.
And they a Buddhist truly believes in Buddha. I don't know, whatever they believe into. And to them they see the evidence everywhere.
Yeah.
And same for us Christians. I notice that most people, they adapt the worldview or an opinion, then they go, their brain automatically does it, but then they also go and gather evidence to support that idea.
No, we do that. Yeah.
And one thing that I recently started, looking for even more is hey, how can I find the truth, whether it's in business, religion, Christianity, right? How can I find the truth in what it is that I'm pursuing? And I started reading a little bit of philosophy and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, let me try to look for just the truth, and actually put my opinions and my biases and everything aside, and to find the truth. And one thing I realized is there's not as many absolutes and truths as there is, as people make it seem to be, right? That people say this is true because this is how it's always been in my life and everything. Someone in Africa, it's something is completely different because that's
So, do you think that there is no absolute truth then?
No,
because this is why there is this idea of everyone has their own truth, because
which I disagree with.
Because we take a truth and we add evidence to it everywhere. It's like it's a simple example is like when you get a new car, you start to see this car.
Right.
Same thing with you believe something is true, and then you start to see evidence for this truth everywhere.
Right.
And then you can start believing something that's completely opposite, or I'm start believing. You're gonna start seeing evidence for that, and I'm gonna start seeing evidence for this.
And to me, this is true, and to you, that is true, right?
Yeah, so everyone has their own truth.
So I think the conclusion I came to is there's a lot more. There's a lot, way more of things that I don't know than there's things that I know. There's a lot more questions that I will not be able to answer than the ones I will be able to answer.
That's good. I've been through that.
Including in my Christianity. There's probably going to be, as I go more, because I went, okay, let me figure out what I believe and why I believe it, and there's so many things that I still don't have answers to, and I probably won't. And the people who study, dedicate their life to theology and professors, they will tell you the same exact thing. Oh, I actually don't know. And you're like, what? You're supposed to know.
Yeah. So I stopped digging into theology, and I started just recently, I just narrowed it simply down to I follow Jesus. I am a follower of Jesus. So I try to live the way Jesus taught to live. And so for me, that's plenty enough for the rest of my life to learn how to not be anxious, how to love my enemy, and care less about if you speak in tongues or you can heal it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I care less. My life is centered around following Jesus. Okay, so what he taught, what he brought, the kingdom. How do I live a life that's in the kingdom? And it's enough for me to waste my time or to use my time to figure out how to not be anxious about tomorrow, or how, like I said, how to love my enemy, how to forgive a person who hurt me.
Yeah,
and I don't care about I don't care if you're predestined or not. I don't care. Honestly, right now, I don't care if you're predestined or not.
Unless you aren't.
I don't
Then you
care.
should
I had
care.
care less. Because we are, again, we can become so spiritual and in danger of knowing all these Bible verses for predestination, not predestination, and still watch porn every week, let's say, and tell other people that you'll struggle with it for the rest of your life. It's like Jesus didn't heal you. You know all the right things, but Jesus didn't heal you.
Yeah, so I started focusing more on the things that actually truly matter, because there's going to be so many things that it's not going to matter whether you believe you're predestined or not predestined or whatever, because in between all of those things you could find things that actually matter, and it's how you live your life, it's how you know, how you do things, what you do, what you say, you know, and like a lot, like 80% of the stuff won't matter whether you're right or wrong.
I know books has been something big impact in your life. You had a book club at one point.
Did I?
I guess.
I
Nerd?
think Paulina started that.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I don't even remember. I know you also. I might be wrong, but if I remember correctly, you mentioned writing your own book.
Mm-hmm.
I want an update on that.
Yeah.
Where is it? Is it happening?
You haven't read it yet?
No.
It's not out yet.
Are you writing a book?
So, no, not yet.
Okay.
So, being the young and ambitious person that I was when I said that,
Okay.
I kind of matured and figured out I should write a book sometime after 40,
Okay.
when I've actually lived through. Because when I was 21 and 22 and 23 leading teen ministry, I had opinions that have changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to write a book on something that's going to change in a few years.
Yeah. One of my bonus questions.
That's rational thinking for you.
Yeah.
If I was a feeler, I'd probably write a book at 21 and think I'm like
Yeah.
best-selling author.
One of my questions was, which this came up so much in our conversation and even at brunch, what commitment or opinion you've made that you no longer agree or believe in? And if there's several, maybe you could just list them.
Okay, that might take some time to think. Yeah, this is probably one I need to think through. I don't have anything that comes to my mind right away.
Okay, we could save it for the after hangout.
Okay.
Because I actually want to know.
Yeah.
I think this could be a very interesting conversation. Just
Yeah, no, for sure. Nothing comes
yeah,
right now.
because we're like on a
Yeah, nothing comes right now.
a lot of these questions, I'm just like personally super curious. You know. Anyway, marriage season and parenting season. In which season have you learned the most about yourself?
Parenting season.
What's,
sure.
What's the difference?
So marriage season was a bit short. Yeah, we said after a year, but we didn't wait a year. Julie and I are just very good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, we knew each other for like
For a long
10
time.
years.
Yeah.
And then we dated for like almost 3 years.
3 years?
Almost 3 years. It's like over 2 years. After knowing,
Did you not tell anyone about it?
we dated for a long time.
Secretly. Well,
So what happened was we would hang out together.
Oh, in groups.
No, like I was dating her. We were dating, and then we would go, let's say, on a youth trip, and we would like hang out like we always do, but people wouldn't think anything because we always hung out like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like if she sat by me at the New Year's party, we remember this just a few days ago.
No one would think.
No one's like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's so true.
they're just sitting as friends because there's a bunch of other friends, but we're super lovey-dovey.
Why?
Nah.
3 years?
No. So 3 years might be. I think two plus.
Still.
Still, yeah, it was a good
Why?
time.
was it more of like getting things ready, like
So yeah, just kind
getting
of
ducks in a row?
yeah, life, career, finances that played a role, and then she wasn't sure if she wanted to get married to me for a while, which now she regrets. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I guess it makes
we
sense.
need-
Everyone's time.
we needed it. I mean, so what I'm saying is that marriage period was
Yeah.
pretty short, but there was no problems at all. Honestly, like some people say the first year, like
Yeah.
you rub off each other and like kind of there's fights and everything. Like we didn't have that. Genuinely, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
we just lived together. We had the best time together, and we decided that we want to have kids early on
Yeah.
because we got married a little bit older than
Yeah.
average, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But the parenting age, it was been a year and a half since we had Emily,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having a boy soon, which is super exciting. That was a big shock wave because a lot of new things came our way that we weren't expecting. I'm not gonna list them all, but one of them is like sleeplessness that comes with a new baby, and when you're tired, irritated. When you're tired and you want to sleep, but you can't sleep because everyone's awake, like the real you comes out, the irritated you comes out, the selfish you comes out. You start to see yourself, like the deeper stuff. Like they say, you are who you are when somebody steps on your toe, or something along those lines. When you're hurting life, the real you comes out.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the stages where it's like you're tired, irritated, and you kind of see yourself in the mirror. And so we not necessarily between me and Julie, but just like you work through the character flaws that come up. And I think God does that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go through each stage, and each stage in life as you grow, he exposes new character flaws that you have, new areas of the soul that need to be healed. And so like for me, I'll share something personal. It was like escapism. So like I would escape to, like when I'm tired and irritated, my kind of go-to drug is like YouTube, and just scroll through YouTube through all the garbage and all the rat holes and all that. So like that's the same thing as like someone has a problem, someone has relationship issues, they go have a drink, they go escape, they go numb it. And so for me, for in that season, it's like, okay, are you gonna go numb it, or are you gonna, or is there a better way to deal with the situation, or a more healthy way to deal with the situation when you're not escaping into, let's say, a virtual world? Something along those lines. It's hard to explain because the first time I'm putting it into words. But parenting has been hard, at the same fun. It sucks that God makes the best things in life kind of hard at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it sucks, but it's we enjoy it more when it comes to us
With challenge.
with a challenge,
Yeah.
or it comes to us, hard.
Another thing that you said that I overheard that was really cool is that like parenting Emily, or like a girl, it helped you realize or become the husband that you want her to have in the future.
Yeah.
How did you quote? How did you
Yeah,
word
yeah.
it? You worded it so good.
Yeah, so I want to grow into the person that I would want her to marry.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like
that's deep. Yeah.
pure in mind,
Mm-hmm.
financially responsible. So like I want to first become this for me, because I want to be that person, and at the same time I want her to see that that I want her to see that it is possible to be pure in mind. I want her to see it as possible to be financially responsible, and then because when she knows it's possible, she can look for that in other people, or in her husband, or in her whatever, when she's dating at no younger than 21. And then the other thing, we mentioned this when we had brunch, but becoming a father, you really, man, it's crazy. You start to really understand how God sees you as his child. And one of the things I shared was Emily never sits. She runs around crazy all the time. It never sits. Like we try to like pray with her. She's 1.5. It's like she stands on her knees for 2 seconds max, and she's running around. And she's always doing something, and always with this face like it's so important, I need to get it done. And it kind of comes from my character. I'm a doer. I'm always like trying to impress people, trying to perform, trying to do. And like laying with her when she's falling asleep, and she's like all peaceful, and I look into her eyes and I'm like, man, I love you right now the most when you're resting. And for me, it was like God spoke into my mind at that moment. It's like, Andrey, I love you when you're resting too. Like, not when you're trying to save the whole world. I love you when maybe you take a nap in my presence. And from like, okay, whoa, that's crazy. So slowing down has been one of the things that I have been working on recently. Because with slowing down, a lot of good things happen, because like growth happens slow. Like I have a garden, growth happens really slow. You want to plant it and have fruits right away, but no, it happens slow. What you do is just water it. Growth happens slow. Healing often happens slow. All these, I have a whole list in my notes of things that happen slow, and they're all good things. Things that happen fast are accidents, affairs, things that happen like fast on the go. I have a list of all the bad things that happen on the go. And so for me, it's like, okay, go slow. That's where growth happens. That's where healing happens in the soul, in life. That's how love is often slow. Fast love is called probably an affair, right? So I was like, wow, all these good things that happen slow. Maybe if we go slow, we can experience all this good stuff in life, like growth, relationships, love. And that's what I've been kind of growing through right now. It's like, you can do less in ministry. And I know some people will say this is heresy. You can do less in ministry. You should do less in ministry and give more time to your kids, to your wife, in relationship and love, because that is your primary responsibility. I had one of the pastors who I look up to. He said this: with every new relationship that you have in your life, you need to drop 20% of your workload. So like when Julie was added to my like close relationship list, I backed out a little bit out of ministry. When Emily was added, I backed out a little bit more. And now when maybe Boy's going to be added, I'm going to drop even more. Because these are relationships. These are my primary responsibilities. You're literally partnering with God to create a human being. That's like the biggest impact that you can have on this world. Anyway, that's
Wow.
a rabbit hole. But
Wow, that's a good note to end it on. Wow. Yeah.
So slowing down has been kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
There's 3 miles an hour is how fast we walk. And it's plenty of Bible verses where it's like walk in love, walk in faith. There's the passage where the pagans, they chase after this, like don't be anxious. The pagans are anxious because they chase after things. We're anxious when we're running from one thing to another, from one project to another project. Get it done. It's like worried about this, stressed about this, irritated, not enough sleep. That's been my life since my 20s or in my 20s. And one spiritual discipline I have right now is just walking. You go on a walk, and it reminds you of the pace that you should go in life. You don't have to run to be successful. Maybe earlier in life, when you're like getting on your feet, you have to be a hustler, push through, earn all the money you can, save up. But I'm in a season now, it's like, I remind myself the pace I should go in life by just walking. And it sounds like an old thing to do, but it's been life-changing. It's been life-changing. We experience love, we experience relationships, we experience growth, healing, and so many other good things when we go slow.
Wow. That's beautiful.
I agree.
Yeah.
So slow down.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so it takes things like I cut some hobbies. Like I got into running at one point, and it just at some point it's like you go from one hobby to another thing to another thing. You cut out. You go. It's like the minimalistic lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Yeah.
There's a book by Chinese or Vietnamese theologian called the 3 mile an hour God, and he argues that 3 miles an hour is God's speed. That's how fast he goes. And so, it's his idea, but like when he says walk by the Spirit and keep in step with the Spirit, it's like you can't hear God, you can't hear His input into your life when you're going so fast, when you're always in the noise. I know one of the pastors says, the noise of this world that makes us deaf to the voice of God, because we're so in I think the speed of this world, especially in the big cities, makes us incompetent to walk with God, because we're going so fast and it's always loud. And there's no time to really just sit in the quiet and be with God and hear what He's saying.
Yeah.
He's a spirit. And you won't hear Him when you're running crazy and always noise in your ears. And I'll add one more thing. It's maybe you had these experiences. Some of the best times I've had, breakthroughs, was when I tore my ACL and I was in bed and I couldn't do anything. That's like a run, fast, slow down, and that was an encounter. Another time I was really, really, really sick and I was out on my couch for 10 days. Breakthrough, slow down. Okay, now you think about those times and it's like, okay, maybe you can slow down yourself and not wait for an accident. How about that?
Looking back on my life when it was so go, especially when I was younger and I thought I wanted to do this and that and I had, things that I wanted to do, versus after I got sick with my stomach for about a year, then broke my shoulder. So I'm not feeling well physically already, and then bam, I can't even do anything physical. And then that's where God did a lot of work on my life. That's right after that was when we got married, and then bought my first business and everything. It's I had all of these things I wanted to do, then stop for a long time, chill, and then God started giving me things.
I think God brought you to a halt. And,
Yeah.
And prepared him for me and our life. Yeah.
Yeah, but also
Yeah.
also cleaned up my life a lot. And,
No. And what you're saying is it happens in the slow moments, but these are forced slow moments.
Yeah.
What if they were disciplined slow moments?
Well,
That's what I'm getting at. What if they were disciplined? What if they were intentional in your life to slow down? It's called there's actually a movement. It's called slow down spirituality, where the idea is to slow down, to walk God's speed, which is 3 miles an hour.
yeah, that makes sense. In the business world, stuff is there's so much opportunities and everyone's focused on growth. They do the same in ministry, right? We need to grow by X amount with this and this and this, and business, grow your business by another one, this and that, grow. But it's what's the point of it all if you're missing?
Yeah, when we talk about business, I just finished a book called Slow Productivity
Okay.
by Cal Newport. It's all about business, but his idea is exactly the same. We are more productive when we go slow. I think I'm going to try to recall the 3 points. He says, do less, go at a natural pace, and be obsessed with quality. And so he says, his idea is when you go slow, you're able to produce more quality work, and that is more productive than doing a bunch of things half.
Yeah, 100% agree. especially in like today's world.
Halfway.
Yeah. I feel like we could keep talking and talking for hours. I feel like we should do a part 2, maybe next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Come over.
yeah, we will. But thank you for doing this with us. This meant a lot to me. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you sometime soon.
Sounds good. Also, Tree, thank you for being with us. What's it called? Remember the camp that you and Karina organized?
Yeah.
Remember the name of the camp?
Uh,
I remember the name of the camp. Unity Camp.
United.
United.
Camp United.
Yeah.
Yeah, Camp United.
That was fun.
That was
That was
fun.
good. I came
Yeah.
to hang
You,
out
you
with y'all.
spoke.
I shared a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean? You were one of the paid speakers at the camp.
I got paid.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, dang.
It was 3,000. I think.
3,000.
3,500. Nah, just kidding. We didn't pay you. We kept all the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Karina.
Yeah.
Saving fundraising for the wedding.
No, we
You
actually.
guys weren't dating back then.
No, we weren't even dating.
I have a question now for you guys.
Oh.
So, you're older than him.
No. Next question.
Asked him
What?
if he lacks empathy.
He?
Yeah, because
Oh.
he's also like rationally
Does
wired.
he?
Yes, I think he
You do?
does. Sorry. Back
Yeah.
when we were in ministry, I noticed
No, for
things of
sure.
like.
I can
was,
share even more. Like,
You think in shapes, not in feelings.
you think in
you
clouds.
feel in shapes.
You think in clouds.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember we would do camps,
Mm-hmm.
and we would set like the age range, and I would be super like nobody even a day younger would enter.
Mm-hmm.
And does that make sense?
Yeah,
I would
but
be super.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this.
Yeah, but like parents would be like, "Well, he's only a day younger. Like, all his friend groups is
Oh,
going,
yeah.
and they're not." I'm like, "It doesn't matter. He doesn't get the cut." And so it doesn't matter. Like we have to have a cut somewhere.
You know how I
Yeah, and so I think that would be wrong now.
Yeah.
But back then I was certain that that's the way it works.
There's another thing you would do. You would go home, ponder on a plan, develop a plan, an idea for teens ministry. You've thought it through, like backwards and forwards. You would show up to team meetings. Guys, this is the plan. What do you think? And no matter what idea anyone gave, you're like, it doesn't matter. It will be what. So like you would hear their opinion. You'd be like, okay, but you always would logic it back to
How I thought it should
how, because you thought it through. You already have an answer to their question. So I remember like sitting there like, what's the point? It's always going to be how Andrey
be. What's
wants
the
it to
point
be.
of us?
Yeah. I was like, you were doing it out of courtesy, but
It's kind of like what happens with God. Yeah, predestination.
Oh, well, it's like if you choose to believe it. So, yeah, it depends.
yeah.
Doesn't matter what we do, God's gonna get his way anyways.
If you choose to believe that.
Only.
Well, yeah, that's a side topic.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask him something.